seconds. Let's get going. Thank you everyone for joining the September webinar from Broad Sky Networks. Our topic today is integrating wireless solutions into the modern network, part 2. If you didn't see the first one, you can go to our YouTube channel and see it. The general theme here is what we're talking about is the network has evolved greatly over the last 6 years with the advent of cloud services. And we're pointing out the various different places where wireless is now integral to weaving that into a cloud-based solution. Last month, we talked about protecting headquarters and protecting branch locations and sort of places where there's anywhere from 100 to 1,000 employees at a headquarters and a significant branch location. Today, we're going to hit on some of those same themes, but we're talking about more remote and mobile work, mobile applications, temporary applications, places where we're outside of building infrastructure and we're pulling data in from the field. Today, joining me is Ash Kakish, our Central Regional Channel Manager. Ash is out of Chicago, and he's going to be handling sort of the middle of this webinar. And so let's get into it. One housekeeping thing I forgot to mention last month, so I want to make sure I mention it again. We do a Q&A at the end of this. And so if we say something that's interesting to you, and you have a question for it, just go ahead and lob it into either the Q&A side or the chat side, which is at the top of your screen. Just type your question. And then at the end, what we do is we read off all the questions for the benefit of all, and then we answer the question to the best of our ability. We'll go through the Q&A side first, and then we move over to the chat side. Other housekeeping thing, everyone on this call will receive a copy of the entire presentation, including the Q&A, to be used for future reference. And then on our YouTube channel, every webinar we've ever done is on there for past research. Okay, so housekeeping out of the way, let's get going. So a little bit about Broad Sky. We're a single source provider for managed solutions for wireless providers. Wireless is all we do. We've been at this since 2003, and we were acquired by an Internet of Things company, sort of merged together for Internet of Things solutions called Epic.io early in 2020. We have a variety of IoT offerings, which is outside scope of this presentation, but is very interesting in an exploding market, so you can talk to us about that as well. We've received quite a few awards for our efforts. Inc. 5000 4 years in a row, Channel Futures in 2000 and 2001, and we're headquartered out of Bend, Oregon, as well as Fort Mill, South Carolina, with distribution center there. Our parent company, as I mentioned, is Epic.io, and our sister company is IntelliSite, which offers IoT lifecycle monitoring, any really sort of IoT-based services, as well as a very robust video monitoring, video security, using artificial intelligence service for monitoring remote locations. So that's sort of the background of Broad Sky. Sort of the one point to take away from this that I like to say is wireless is all we do. It's all we've ever done. Nobody's better at wireless than us. And linking it to today's topic, your customers need modern solutions for what they're doing in the cloud right now. A solution that was invented in 2015, which is pretty ubiquitous in the market right now, really has no place in securing cloud-based services and the speeds that we need to get to do that. What you need is a 2021 solution, which is either 5G based, bonded solution based, at a minimum best carried every location based. These are the things that we focus on. There's a lot of providers in this market now, but there's always one provider who's best at it in any particular niche industry, and in wireless, it's us. So the modern network, wireless solutions in the modern network, and then talking about 4G, 5G. We're going to talk today about mobile applications, temp deployments, and then temp deployments, natural disasters. So either temp deployment where you're putting a fiber circuit out there, but the fiber is not going to get delivered in time, which happens all the time. Or if we get to an emergency and we lose connectivity. After every hurricane, September through November around Broad Sky is always very busy because we're always sending out units for people who've lost their connection. In that period of time until we get it out there, and we get it out there fast, they are hard down. And we help solve that, but the way to get in, the larger lesson here is the way to get in front of that for your customers is that natural disasters are going to happen. If it's a wildfire, or if it's a flood, or if it's a hurricane, or even if it's something simple as not a natural disaster, but a man-made disaster. Somebody cuts the cable coming in. Somebody floods the cable coming in. Some idiot hits the pole on the street coming in. That's how internet gets delivered. It's delivered over wires, and wires are not controlled. There's a variety of people who have the ability to affect that. We'll never fix car accidents. We'll never fix backhoe fade. We'll never fix burst water main. The only thing you can do to fix that is to get ahead of it and put in a route diverse, network diverse connection so that they can engineer around it before it happens, not necessarily after it happens. I'm getting a little sound feedback from somewhere. I'm not sure who it is, but if someone can see it and mute it, that would be great. Thank you. The way we deploy and sort of objectively how we get ahead of the curve on this is we call it the gold standard in wireless. And what that means is that, number one, we pick the best carrier for every location. You need all three carriers across the country to deliver a uniform solution. We have very powerful lookup tools to see which carrier has the actual best performance at every location. Then you want to get it out fast. We also put 2 SIMs in every router we put out there, the primary carrier, but then also a secondary carrier. Then you can actually put that in active mode so that the modem can toggle back and forth, or you can connect to 2 carriers at the same time and pull both download speeds and upload speeds from both of those. And the byproduct of that is that you have double carrier diversity. In fact, you could put a router out there with 4 SIM cards in it, connect to all 3 carriers at the same time, bond all 4 together, and be connected to all 3 carriers at the same time. It's a very, very powerful backup tool. And if you think about a headquarters location that's running on a 1 gig fiber circuit supporting 600 customer or 600 internal users, they need that speed and that performance and that carrier diversity. So those are the solutions we provide. Finally, we can put it in 0 CapEx, so you can rent this. You don't have to buy equipment. You don't have to pay maintenance fees. You don't have to pay an outside portal fee. We take care of all of that. And then we pool everyone's data together. We have a very robust reporting tool that shows people how much data are they using. And then we can change that to match their pool and move their pool up and down. So it's a cost containment, and also it's a control vector where you can see how much you're using in the field. It's very, very difficult to get that from the carriers and most of our competitors. We provide it to you for free. So the modern network, where we moved in the last 6 years, and COVID accelerated this, but it was happening anyway. The modern network is always on. People are working from home. They're not working 8 to 5. People are getting on at 2 o'clock in the morning all the time, and they need to have the same performance at 2 in the morning that they had at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The other attribute to this of always on is that if it goes down, somebody's affected greatly. If there's a deadline being hit and your designers are in 7 different places and they're on a shared meeting or a shared Zoom call and somebody drops off, they're gone, and that meeting doesn't proceed until they come back. So always on connectivity and having the ability to get always on has become a key part of moving everything to the cloud. One of the things I was thinking about is your gain is your loss. And what I mean by that is the gain from moving everything to the cloud is fantastic. The collaboration tools, there's cost advantages to it, the ability to share information and outside infrastructure. The downside of that is it's also your loss. All those efficiencies you picked up and came to rely on absolutely disappear if you can't get to the internet. And the only way to ensure that is to have a real wireless connection that's scaled to meet the needs of that user, that works every time, regardless. And that's what we provide. So I'm going to turn this over to Ash for the next 4 slides. And his sort of review is the way the corporate networks, what they used to look like, and then what they look like now, and then where we sit and add value when you're designing these solutions for customers, moving to cloud-based services. Ash, go ahead, take it away.
Thanks, Tom. And so I think what's a good refresher for us on the call is to really kind of talk about a traditional network and what it's looked like for the last, 50 years or more, depending on the technology that you apply. And it's really a hub and spoke model, right? You've got everybody coming into the office, sitting in the cubicles at HQ, or at the branch offices, right? And typically HQ's got the servers on site, and everything kind of connects back through headquarters, right? Being able to access ERP systems, being able to access CRMs, AR software, things that are making the business run, all kind of comes back through headquarters. And the brick and mortar environment really enabled that, right? The infrastructure has been set up for brick and mortar. It's been set up for office parks. It's been set up for high rises. Now, the infrastructure that's been laid out traditionally over the years has been to service this model specifically, right? And within that, even within retail environments, hospitality, areas where you have a combination of, storefronts that are or hotels or hospitals that are taking care of customers, coming back to traditional, very sterile corporate environments, um, you know, locations that are being sought, places where they wanted to live. The infrastructure of the traditional telecom carriers is really meant to service this traditional network, right? The world we live in today, and if you want to go to the next slide, Tom, has flipped that all on its head. The traditional brick and mortar environment is gone. People are changing the way they do business. And the question that they're asking themselves is, well, how can we get closer to the customer? How can we serve the customer in a more efficient way to gain a competitive advantage within our industry, right? And the customer could be, traditional retail. The customer could be a healthcare customer. It could be a business customer in the manufacturing space. It could be an oil and gas. Who the customer is really doesn't matter in this format, because the answer that you're looking for, the answer that businesses are looking for, it's still, well, how do I connect all of my endpoints to this new network, right? And within here, and where we're really focusing today is the remote workforce, temporary sites, branch office, and fleets. But even the branch has changed. Distribution centers have changed, right? People are looking for real estate that is less expensive. People don't want to come into the office. They want to have a flexible environment to work from home. And really what we're seeing is more and more businesses are deploying the pop-up store model and short-term events more than they ever have before. We're constantly talking to businesses that are looking to do very short-term events in densely populated areas, parks, rec centers. Here in Chicago, we see pop-ups all the time in Grant Park, Millennium Park. I was at Lincoln Park Zoo the other day with my kids, and Verizon themselves had a huge truck that they rolled in through, talking about fixed LTE for businesses. And so if we're seeing businesses presenting themselves in the middle of the zoo, then really there are no limits to where businesses are willing to go to reach the customer. And the challenge that we're going to have is that in that traditional network model, the infrastructure that exists services that, right? Now what we're finding is, as we've got more temporary sites and more fleets and more vehicles and more remote work more people working from home, working remote, the network, the infrastructure that was designed for a very traditional brick and mortar corporate environment just doesn't work anymore. You have outages, you have limited availability. I don't know how many times we hear from businesses that, hey, my employees want to work from home, but the subdivision that they live in gets absolutely terrible internet. They've got Optimum, they've got Windstream, and it's super oversubscribed, and it's constantly going down. It's decreasing productivity. At temporary sites, we want to be there for 3 days. We need minimum 50 meg on the upload side to broadcast what we're trying to do, but we don't want to sign a 3-year contract. We don't want to be locked into a long-term agreement when we're just there for a weekend, right? And with fleets and vehicles, connected devices are more powerful than ever. Being able to take a tablet or a RFID scanner or something, on your trucks and on the field, iPhones with attachments, right? And being able to connect the fleets and vehicles while still maintaining security, and you're not exposing yourself to threats from employee usage, downloading personal applications, things like that. The model has changed, and I think businesses are changing quickly, and they're calling on Broadsky to do so. So one of the things that we offer that I know Tom's going to get into is how can we make a wireless solution fit what you're looking for or what your customer is looking for, whether it's needing active connection in a work from home environment, or whether you just need some for 3 days. It gives you 50 meg on the upload side to broadcast. Being able to find solutions for your customers is where we're finding partners setting themselves apart within this environment. And that's the new network, right? That's the modern network. It's being able to bring wireless connectivity to the edge away from just the branch office and just HQ. Yes, we want to keep the branch up, right? We want to keep HQ up. We can't lose connectivity at HQ. Everything runs through there. But just as important, it's making sure that your fleets, your temporary connections, having a network that's nimble enough and agile enough to do what your customer needs to do. It has become more important than ever. Wouldn't you agree, Tom?
Yeah, that's the theme on this, is that we all move to the cloud. And we're going to where the customers are, and we're trying to find them. That trend is not going to change. The connectivity is not set up for that. And people put a lot of money into these pop-ups. People put a lot of money into a store opening or a branch opening. People put a lot of money into their fleet. It needs to work all the time. And that trend isn't going to change. So the opportunity to weave wireless in early, I think sets a designer apart when you're looking at an overall solution. It also sets you apart from your competition when you're talking about safeguarding all these gains that we're bringing to you by moving to the cloud and by getting closer to the customer. We have to safeguard these gains, and that's the language that CFOs speak. That's the language that CEOs speak. Is I want all the upside, and then but now I realize I have to spend a little money to protect my upside, and now I can sleep at night knowing that upside is locked in. So yeah, let's put a robust secondary solution at all of our locations to make sure that they never go down, and that we're always going to be humming. Now I've taken care of it. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Move on to the next thing. I'm glad you brought that to my attention. Nobody else talked to me about that. You did. I'm going with you guys. You seem to understand what we do. That's how we set you apart when you're designing against other solutions, is that protect path and that always on path that you have to deliver, not just talk about. And we deliver that.
Yeah, and I think to kind of piggyback on that, it's being able to trust that the vendor you bring in to the customer is going to do a good job. They're going to put something in that's been tried and true and tested. And I think here at Broad Sky, we've done thousands of these types of deployments. And so we know what works, we know what doesn't, and we know how to make sure that your customer's end goal is met kind of through what we offer. And a little bit of a shameless plug, right? Kind of in the middle of the webinar, to be able to say that, very few in the channel can do what we do in this space. So being able to differentiate ourselves is an advantage. And so we, for you as a partner, we understand that it's a very competitive environment out there, and you have to bring to your customer the solutions that nobody else is able to bring. And so when these types of situations come up, temporary deployments, needing to connect your fleet, having a remote workforce that just is not getting the performance that they need to get, we'd like you to think Broad Sky. And so kind of moving to the next slide to talk about some use cases, right? Very specific situations in which we've been able to deploy these solutions. So I'll go through the first use case here, and then Tom will pick it up and run from there. But one of the most common sites we see is leveraging a business that's on the move. And so this is a mobile healthcare clinic that's in different locations. It's not at the same site all the time. And healthcare clinics have very specific needs. Mobile healthcare clinics take the same needs that a healthcare clinic has, like patient records, scheduling, compliance from a data perspective and a security perspective. And now you add the remote element to it, where the location is going to differ depending on where you are, right? Are you set up at a school? Are you set up at a community center? Are you set up in a public park, at a business, right? Where are you set up? You don't have the freedom if you're running that business, right? And here for Claris Health, they don't have the freedom to have to dig and hunt and try to find connectivity depending on where they are, because those locations can vary from a day-to-day basis. So what they needed was something that was single source, right? But had the flexibility to take advantage of the best carrier possible. Obviously, LTE became the strongest option. we were able to say, okay, no matter where your truck is going, we will give you the best carrier network possible. So if it's AT&T, it's Verizon, it's T-Mobile, and the site changes from day to day, our support team is able to flip the carriers on the fly to give you kind of what's best. But you don't have to deal with anybody but BroadSky. Within that, though, being able to put in a multi-link solution, being able to bond together multiple circuits to offer upmarket streaming, to offer high-speed availability, also kind of what was a major need here, right? I need a certain minimum speed, being able to offer that. So we were able to take our multi-SIM solution, bond it together through our cellular SD-WAN platform to really offer an unbreakable internet connection. And within that, they needed visibility, right? The platform had to be able to show them, from a GPS tracking perspective, where the circuit was, how much data it's using, is my security element up to date and staying in place. So offering a platform for that visibility. And then really, and the most important for Claris is that it has to be repeatable, has to be easy. They have to be able to come to a vendor and say, hey, I need two, here's where you send them. And we do two, and we send them. We send one to this location, one to that location, without having to re-engineer it each and every time, right? It's a scalable, repeatable solution so that they know that it's going to go in and work, and they know that the vendor that they're bringing in is going to take care of them, right? And so that's a great use case. That's a great fit for BroadSky because we engineer it well on the back end so that it can be repeatable and scalable on the front end. And I'll flip it over to Tom to talk about the next one. But that's anything you want to add to that, Tom?
Yeah, just the only thing I would add to that, just imaging was the one thing I was thinking about. Imaging equals upload speed, and then HIPAA, which was the regulatory side. This is a very specific environment that they have to hit. Once they go out, they have to offer the same security and the same patient privacy that everyone else does, and they have to have the same performance. If you're sending X-rays up or MRI images up or ultrasound images up, they have to get, and they're going to get read. They have to get there fast. So by deploying a solution that, as Ash talked about, that's connected to multiple carriers at the same time, it also gives them more upload speed on a practical matter. They can park the truck and do their business. They're in the healthcare business, not the remote connectivity business. So we just take care of that for them. So we'll move to the next case study on this, which is temp deployment and or disaster deployment, either way. Companies do this all the time, and we do a huge business in this. We're going to be there for 6 months. We're going to be there for 9 months. Construction companies, I think, are 15 or 17% of BroadSky's business. Where we're going to be there for 9 months. We need high speed. We need to be able to do all the things that we do at an office, and then we're going to move on and go to the next place. Ordering fiber into a construction site is really a pain. Sometimes there isn't even an address there. There aren't facilities there. And then as you can see, there's a backhoe. And so we lay down a cable in the ground and then the backhoe digs it up. A much better solution is to just put a wireless into this construction trailer itself, get the same speeds you would have gotten. It works on day one, and you can actually leave it in the trailer and move it to the next one. So even though they might only be there for 6 to 9 months, they're going to move on. The construction industry is booming in America right now. So they're going to move on to another job. And then we can either have the same problem they had before, or they don't have to worry about it at all. We have a customer down south who has 40 or 50 of these in their trailers, but they've moved them 200, 250 times over the last 6 years. And they show up, they turn it on, and it works. So that's on the construction side, that makes sense. If you apply that up into like a temp deployment or a pop-up store or the zoo thing that Ash was talking about, these things are not cheap. Those mobile tents or mobile pavilions, we're not selling firecrackers in the parking lot of Kmart anymore. They put a lot of money into those things. And we have a number of high-end customers who, will turn up $100,000 booth and be there for 3 days. And they expect to sell either $1 million worth of product during that deployment, or they expect to get $1 million worth of branding. But if they don't have connectivity, they have nothing. They've got video monitors in there. They've got point of sale systems. It has to be PCI compliant. They're selling product. They're showing videos, and they have a lot invested in it. Without connectivity, they have nothing. And so the same thing applies. They just take our device and they move it from site to site to site to site all over the country. They never have to worry about this anymore. They never need to know if they're going to have internet when they go on site. there's an entire provisioning department that no longer has this problem to them. Is the facility going to get delayed? And there's an entire contracts division that isn't looking at build costs or 1-year contracts for someone who's going to be there for 3 days. So the way we do that is it's one box that connects to 2 carriers or 4 carriers. It's very fast on the download and it's very fast on the upload, which is for a lot of these applications a big deal. Then they move it on to the next one. It's carrier diverse. You can't cut it. It's reliable and it's repeatable. So that's sort of the temp side and the deployment side and the disaster side, how we go in and solve that. So the hurricanes just happened. I sort of spoke to this earlier. I'm going to reiterate this point. We can help you solve your problem after the disaster and after the flood, but it's a far better use case to go into your customer and say, let's take care of this now. It's not that expensive on a per site location. We've moved everything to the cloud. If you can't get to the cloud, you're not in business anymore. And I can fix this in 2 or 3 days afterwards, or I can fix this everywhere now. Or in other words, would you like to get ahead of this or do you want to be behind it? And once people hear that on the risk management side, they go, yeah, I'd rather be ahead of this. I've seen the hurricanes, I've seen the disasters, weather events are getting more extreme. We all know this. So this isn't going to change. Between fires and floods, this affects a large part of the country. So it's a great opportunity to engage with your current customer base to say, let's get a solution in every location now. The budget's reasonable, and then we don't have to worry about it. And it will protect you against all outages regardless, either man-made or natural. So the top 5 takeaways on this, modern network is cloud-centric, always on demand, scalable connectivity. And always on is that key part. Because people are working 24/7 and because you never know who's going to be collaborating with who where, it behooves IT people to put something in place where everyone can connect at all times regardless. Advancements in 4G, 5G, and bonded speed wireless solutions are now a key part of the modern network strategy. And the key part on that is that it's the speed side, guys. There's any number of vendors running around deploying the solution that we deployed 6 years ago and calling it LTE and 4G. And they're right. I mean, semantically, it is a 4G solution, but it's a 4G solution that runs at 15 meg down and 7 meg up. It may or may not be connected to the best carrier at that location, or they may just have one contract with one carrier and hope. That was good enough 6 years ago. It's just not good enough anymore. You need best carrier at every location with a faster router, perhaps even a 5G router, because that gets even wider, or a bonded solution. And you present them options. You can go this fast for this speed, or you can go twice as fast or a little bit more, or you can go 4 times as fast for a little bit more. And now they have sort of a buffet to choose from. So how important is it to me to fail over, and how important is it to me to run fast? I'll choose, but they're going to choose one of your options. And frankly, they might not, if the people who are competing with you haven't brought in those options, they've sort of been aced out of the deal because you're talking about something no one else is. Point 4, flexible solutions for secure and mobile temp. That's what we talked about today. There's a lot of business in this. People are always moving. And what we find is that you solve this for them once, they see that wireless works, and then they go back and go, oh, that wireless thing, that actually worked out really well. I have a number of opportunities for this. And why don't we talk backup at every location? So a one location deal isn't necessarily the end of it. It's often the beginning of it. And then previous. Point 5, going back to that gold standard, it will work everywhere. Whether you want to delve into the details or you just want to be assured that we know what we're doing, there's a number of tools that we deploy every time as part of our standard process that most people haven't caught up to still because it costs money to do so. You have to actually employ people to do this. It's not free. We've invested in that as far as best carrier. We've invested in the best equipment. We've invested in data management and reporting. These are all, and we all speak the same common language at Broad Sky so that it's never a surprise as to how much data you're using. We just give you the information. Most other people, it's a surprise, and then you're chasing it on the backside. We would have alerted you all month long that this is how much data you're using. So weaving us into your cloud-based solutions early sets you apart from your competitors. And then once you deploy it, it will work, it will be reliable, and it will become something that you can sell to multiple customers, multiple locations, and use it to secure new opportunities as well. So how do I engage with BroadSky to do all this cool stuff? This is the map of our regional representation. Please look to where you sit, not where your opportunity sits. So in the Northwest, Jim Miller. In Southern California, Amy Eshelman. Southwest, Scott Sharple. In the Midwest, Ash Kakish. In the Northeast, Mike Cardinal. In the Southeast, Todd Hulsenbeck. If you happen to have a white label opportunity where you want to weave the solution in as part of your solution and then turn around and rebuild it, that is my division. And leading up the entire management side is Maureen Donovan, our EVP of Sales. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Q&A side, and we'll answer that question first. And then we'll go over to the chat side and answer those questions. If you want to lob one in right now, go ahead. John asked, so using multi-SIMs is an SD-WAN type backup solution. Let's break that down. Multi-SIMs, I'm going to answer this two ways. Our standard offering includes 2 SIMs, John. And so you're only connected to one carrier at one time. And so we'll engineer that so that on this particular location in Phoenix, AT&T is shown to have the best solution there. They've proven to have the best speeds at that particular location, which is something we can look up. And we're not looking at carrier maps, by the way. We're actually looking at real performance data. Then we would deploy AT&T to that particular site. It will perform the best. Then whatever carrier had the second best performance there, we would put that in SIM slot 2. Let's just say arbitrarily Verizon. If for whatever reason AT&T disappeared, that Verizon SIM is sitting there and ready to go. Your second option is you can put that router into active mode, where it's connected to AT&T, but if AT&T disappears, it will automatically shift over to Verizon. And there's about a 1-minute downtime, and then it picks up the Verizon side. So that's your next layer up. Your next layer up from that is a bonded solution, where we would put out a router that connects to AT&T and Verizon at the same time. And they'd be pulling data down from both of them. You've now doubled your speeds, you've doubled your diversity, and you've doubled your upload. If AT&T, for whatever reason, disappeared, you'd still have Verizon. And then you can take that to a 4-SIM solution, where we would connect to all 3 carriers at the same time, and we double one. And the one that we double is the one that is the fastest at that location. And that's your ultimate performance right there. Then within bonding 4 SIMs, you can also go to a faster router. So you can actually put out a 4-SIM 5G bonded box. Now it's expensive. That's as fast as you can possibly go. Each modem is now connected to the 5G towers and getting 5G download. And now you're getting into that 400, 500 theoretical speed if everything works perfectly. And that's massively fast. But the application for that is that if they have a 1 gig fiber circuit running their business, if you fail over to something, you can't fail over to something that's running at 20 meg down. That's ridiculous. It's like failing over to dial-up at this point. You need to fail over to something that's fast enough to run the business until they come back. Those are the solutions that we provide that our competitors do not. And that's why we talk about these bonded SIMs. Internet speeds are faster. Everything's in the cloud. Put something in that actually is valid to protect what you have and protect all the gains you got from moving everything to the cloud in the first place. Okay, and then John asked, different John, but John asked, can you load balance with a bonded solution? Yes, you can, John. You can set this up percentage-wise where the wireless circuit is up and running, and then you can send as much traffic over that as you'd like. We can help you with that, or any number of SD-WAN boxes will do that as well. So arbitrarily, if you wanted to send either 15% of all traffic over the wireless to take the load off the wired circuit, you could do that. You could also do it on an application basis where these applications are accelerated if the main circuit starts to bog down. So you would start thinking about your Zoom applications, your team applications, your VoIP applications, any sort of collaborative thing. You would set that up to smooth it out so that people don't get chop and jitter where they're on those applications. There's other load balance. So there's a variety of dynamic allocation you can use for the wireless. Because wireless is metered, we only want to do this profitably. And we can help you design that so we're sending over profitable traffic that everybody agrees to. But that's what we wanted to do. I hope that answers your question. Okay, I'm gonna move over to the chat side on questions. Oh, and this is a little long. Vinay stated, I'm just going to read this. The only thing that would still be required is for the customer to provide power to run the wireless connectivity equipment. I agree. Do you also provide and manage backup power? I read reports where the AT&T 911 equipment was out for many hours due to equipment failure. Thanks for clarifying. Great question. You need power to run your internet. You can put a battery backup onto your wireless connection. However, I'll note, you also need a battery backup for the computers that are connecting to it and for the people sitting in the office. So yes, you can put battery backup on a wireless connection, but everyone else needs power too. If you have a power outage in your branch, then you would need a power backup solution that powers everybody and keeps them all up and running. So in a mobile application, it's a little bit different. That would be just connected to the battery itself on the truck, and then you could also put battery backup on that. So I think what Vinay is speaking to is sort of backup design and failover design. If we're talking failover here, then we have to engineer this properly. You know, it's like if you have a fire extinguisher that has 2 ounces of fluid in it, and that's supposed to protect your whole house. Yeah, you got a fire extinguisher, but it's not going to protect the whole house because it's just not big enough. We can help you design something that's actually big enough, actually fast enough, and actually works in specific events, so that everyone can actually, you know, have peace of mind that we did the best we could to protect us against the most likely occurrences. The design of this is really important, and risk management is something people don't want to talk about that much. But once you get into it and you start designing for it, it's like, okay, yeah, we got to do this. It makes sense. I need to protect my business. And a question from Mary, how long does it take to get wireless during a natural disaster? On the assumption that FedEx is working properly, we can get them there the next day. But I wouldn't rely on that, particularly if it's later on in the afternoon, or when we're looking at the Louisiana hurricane, FedEx gets disrupted just like we get disrupted. And so if you can't get the trucks through, sometimes they delay a day. So we can get them out very quickly. But it still makes more sense, particularly for anyone in the hurricane zones, to put this in now. Relying on it later can work, but putting it in now takes care of the problem and doesn't disrupt businesses. And they'll be in a place where, you know, all of their competitors in a certain region are down, but they're still up and running, and they gain business. Vinay went on to say, cell towers typically have 8 hours of battery backup, but they need generators to power their cellular signal. Correct, yep. Cell towers are very robust. That's one of the reasons why this is a great failover solution, is that they're engineered to keep going. They do have battery backup and they do have generators. So if we can get to those cell towers, we can keep people in business. And what that speaks to is that sort of endemic to this is that wireless is network diverse and it's route diverse. You can't cut it and you can't flood it. And the carriers have put millions of dollars into backing up their own towers, and they have multiple towers in a region. So that's why you want to look to those wireless providers. It's a national internet platform that you can use to leverage your entire business that works pretty similarly anywhere in the country. So you put that equipment in, you connect to it, and you're still in business. All right, that was the last question on the chat side, and I'll just go back to Q&A. And no, there weren't any additional questions on the Q&A side either. All right, great. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining the webinar today. And thank you, Ash, for, oh, I'm sorry, I got one more question on the chat side. Nope, it was just Vinay saying thank you. Thank you too, Vinay. Thanks for joining our webinar. Again, it's on our YouTube side. Again, we will send this out to everyone who's on the call, including the question and the Q&A answers and responses. If you have a chance to go to our YouTube channel, every webinar we've ever done is on there. You can review that. The one we did last month on protecting the branch, and we really spoke to this, but we really delved into the deep dive of how to protect headquarters and how to protect branches with that bonded wireless thing. I think there's a lot of upside for sales partners to go back to prospects or current customers and say, we need to, everything we move to the cloud, we need to protect that now. We need to bring this in, and it needs to be route diverse, and it needs to be fast enough. That could be sort of a quick hit sales and an introduction to companies Talking about risk management allows you to talk to people that you normally wouldn't talk to. CFOs and CEOs think about risk all the time, and they will hear a risk management conversation where perhaps others don't because it's not in my budget. Well, CEOs will create budget for risk management once the problem's been outlined to them. All right, well, that's how we help you weave in wireless into your ongoing efforts. Thank you for joining our webinar today, and please join us in October for our next webinar. Invites will be in your inbox, and we will talk about another aspect of wireless and how it helps you generate commissions and keep customers. All right, thank you so much.